great pleasure to welcome a fantastic guest, somebody I have met personally a couple of times. Good morning, or good evening, I should say, to you, Tom.
Good evening.
Hi. So Tom Szymkowiak is from Genealogy Tours. It's a company that provides, as the name indicates, genealogy tours, of course, and we've been working with them for a couple of years now. And today we invited Tom to talk to us about the outlook for 2021, which is a really difficult topic, I guess, from the point of view of not having a crystal ball. Nobody does. But firstly, tell us what's happened in your space in 2020, Tom. How did things pan out, given that travel was not really possible last year?
Good evening, everyone. It's a pleasure to join the live session today. Let me just tell you shortly about the activities that we do here in our company. So basically, as Eva mentioned, as our name indicates, we do heritage tours to Poland and to eastern part of Europe. But we also have the second department that deals with genealogy research, all kind of research. So speaking of the genealogy tours, and in 2020, as you may assume, almost all of them, actually all of them were cancelled. So it was really tough year from that perspective. We couldn't host any foreigners in our country for almost the whole year. So it was, from that perspective, it was a very bad year for us. But in that year, we really developed our research department, and we actually significantly increased the number of research projects we do for people. So we kind of adjusted to the global situation, and we also, I believe, found a small alternative of coming to Poland personally, and I'll try to tell you about that a bit later.
Okay, and where do your customers come from mostly? Which countries?
Mostly the United States, then Australia, Canada, and Great Britain.
So typically, when they do come to Poland, what happens? And hopefully, 2021 is a better year in that regard. But what sort of services do you provide for people that might come from, say, United States?
So when we try to show our country best as we can, but we always focus on heritage tours. So usually it's a kind of combination of a typical sightseeing of Poland, especially for those who are visiting our country for the first time. But we always spend a few days visiting their ancestral towns or villages. Very often it requires a research done by us prior to someone's visit. Actually, when we started doing that over 12 or almost 15 years ago, the main idea was to organize heritage tours, but we quickly realized that people very often they're aware of their Polish heritage, but they don't know too many details. For example, we still get many requests when people are saying, well, my family was from the area of Krakow or area of Warsaw. But doing sometimes very simple research, we're able to find an exact place of their origin. So when they eventually come to Poland, we take them to these places. We very often are able to find an exact location. We are sometimes able to find the house their grandparents or great-grandparents used to live in. We're able to find living relatives. We search and find the graves, and we try to show all these places. So we definitely focus on this heritage
aspect of things,
part of the tour.
So really your work is, I would think, life-changing in some regards, because if anybody knows anything about Polish history, there were several waves of immigration to, let's say, America and other places, but many people were simply poor and they're left with nothing, and their ties with Poland kind of got cut off because they didn't have money to return. And so we're talking about here, sometimes third, fourth, or fifth generation of Poles who, or Polish people with Polish heritage who have a very, very keen interest in exploring that. But what they start with is very little. As you said, they might know somewhere near Krakow, or they might give you something like Nowa Wieś, and there's probably 1,000 villages with that name in Poland, and go figure what that is, right? So the life-changing aspect, so tell us a bit more about that.
Well, for many people, when we talk about the people at the end of the tour or ask for some recommendation, people very often mention that it's a lifetime journey to them. That when you mentioned that this connection between Poland and their current place of living was cut off some years ago, it's important to mention that it stopped basically. So very often, for example, the people who emigrated, their children were able spoke Polish, so we were able to exchange letters with Polish families. Then when they stopped speaking Polish, they immediately automatically stopped sending letters because no one could read them here in Poland. Very often when we have Americans or people from Australia coming to Poland and we find living relatives of them, they still have some old letters sent by the grandparents of our visitors, for example. So it's really I would say that it's really important for people very really touched. It's very emotional. This kind of tourists. So we really believe it's a life-changing thing.
Yeah. So people don't just come for a visit; they go back to the ancestral home. And I think it's interesting in our work too, where the world's upside down right now. And when your clients and our clients' ancestors left, there were, as you said, it was a pretty emotional event, I think, to leave everybody behind. But now the ability for people to reconnect is there. And of course, as you said, they call that pivoting and being agile, by the way. You've had to rethink and redo how you do things. And I think with every adversity, there's opportunity. But what happens with the archives or churches or places that you used to go and visit and get information out of priests or village mayors or whatever? How do you work with them now?
We still have, well, over the years, we were able to build a good relationship with most of the archives, both state and diocesan archdiocesan archives in Poland. So even if they are closed for people, their reading rooms are closed, we still usually are able to access them. It's much more difficult to obtain information from priests, from local churches, because they are not very much interested in having people visiting them.
Right.
But we were doing very well. I would say that we even do more research because last year we really focused on that, and it doesn't really bother us. In some cases, the standard research takes we try to send the final report within 4 to 6 weeks. In some cases, this period is extended, especially as far as our countries are concerned, like the archives in Ukraine or in Belarus or Lithuania are concerned. If they are closed, there is nothing we can do, actually. Right. But in Poland, and I was just checking a few archives even today, and they recently reopened at the beginning of the year. So it's not a big deal right now.
And Tom, the research reports you've mentioned, I have seen a couple that you prepared for us, and they're really comprehensive. I mean, you do go that extra mile to not just provide people records, but give the background information and sort of read between the lines and on the margins. It's really fascinating. Can you think of an example of someone for whom you've worked, and what kind of things you may have discovered for them?
Well, first of all, we always try to show the bigger picture, not just the family tree, not just the names. We believe that when you have a particular person in your family tree. Very often you just have the name and the date of birth, place of birth, and maybe date of death, and that's all. That's what the family tree looks like. But we always try to discover some history behind that. That's why we believe that very often finding living relatives or some people who used to know that family might bring you very interesting discoveries. So we always try to find out what these people used to do. A very frequent question we get is why my ancestors left Poland. And of course, in 90% of cases, it was just looking for better opportunities in another place in the world. But there are also some very sometimes traumatic discoveries that we make. We recently had a research. The family, there were several siblings, and the youngest was a daughter, the only daughter of that family. She left with her older brothers, and she told her parents, "I'm only going there for a couple of months or maybe a year. I earn some money. I'll go back and we'll buy a bigger farm and we'll make our life better here in Poland." And we actually found some, not the direct family, but someone from the family who had the letter from this little girl. And she said that her life after immigration improved so much that even if she had left one eye in Poland, she would never go back to get it.
Wow.
And it was
So
definitely
interesting.
something that our customers did know about.
Right. And I also wanted to run a couple of kind of myths past you. So one is people that start on this journey, and I know this because we work with them, they think that there's some sort of a magic website where you can type in someone's name and information will pop up. So that doesn't happen, right?
No, it doesn't
No.
happen. There are some databases and more information or data is available online, but it's only just a few percent of all of the records. Very similar situation to what you just said is people believe that we have all these records, like we have them in our office or something, and then they're okay. Can I get the record of my grandmother's birth? Or say, unfortunately, we need to search for it.
Yeah.
Very often, it's difficult to locate the place of birth because when people were entering the States, for example, on the ship manifest, they were supposed to give the name very often of the town they came from. Very often they were illiterate, or the clerk writing that down didn't understand or didn't know the name of that place. So it's very often misspelled. So I would say that it's the key factor.
Right.
The first part of it.
Yeah, so I was just going to say that sometimes you really have to dig deep and investigate because the information you start with is nothing what actually happened for all kinds of reasons. And one is that the information is imprecise. And in Poland, you can't find things unless you know specifically where somebody comes from, how you spell their name, their date of birth, all kinds of things that, clients might not know that we need to find. But the other myths I was going to ask you about, people often, I don't know if they say that to you, but to us, they say, oh, my grandfather comes from X and all the records were destroyed. Everything in Poland is destroyed. That's also not true, right?
That's not true, and that's the truth is that people very often think that all of the records, especially Jewish records, were destroyed because of the World War I, World War II. But it's important to mention that the majority of records were written in 2 copies. It was based on the civil law here, so the civil registration that was actually run by either the church, usually the church. At the end of the year, they were supposed to copy their books. So one copy was kept in the local church or in a synagogue, while the second one was given to the court. So in the majority of cases, at least one of these copies survived and is available for us. So even if it's not available in one of the archives, we do a detailed, comprehensive research and we try to find any additional source of information, and we are usually successful with that.
Right. And you do need a professional to do that for you because, you often hear of people, I don't know, going to the village and the local authorities, like, first of all, not being able to communicate in English. and secondly, not really knowing what they're looking for. And so in those kinds of complex cases, I think a professional researcher, professional genealogist really helps. Tom, behind you, we can see some festive decorations. Christmas
Correct.
just finished. Do you also have a crystal ball in front of you? If you don't, pretend you do, and tell us what's going to happen in 2021 with tourism and also with genealogy in Poland.
Yeah, I do have something like that in front of me, okay. So I'm just going to take a quick look at that and and read out. So first of all, we really hope that we'll start getting back to normal in this year. And it's actually quite reasonable to think like that, because Poland has really adjusted to all the safety standards, I would say. And in my personal, not only my personal opinion, but popular belief, it's that it's actually quite safe to travel to Poland, right? Maybe not right now yet, because it's going to take a few more months, but the national program of vaccination has just started, so more and more people are getting vaccinated. So it's one of the benefits. Then the Polish tourism organization has issued their own set of COVID-19 related safety standards that really improved a lot, starting from the hand sanitizer stations that are all over the corner, many hotels, especially because that's what people are usually afraid of, are the hotels. They, during that lockdown last year, they really rearranged the restaurants, their lobbies, just to make sure that there are not too many people staying in the same spot for a long time. So I would say that the whole infrastructure is really adjusted to welcome people visiting Poland. So I would say that the springtime might not be too good yet, but in the summertime, it really hope for fall to this, I'm sorry, for the autumn in 2021. And we really hope for individual tourists. Maybe the group tours won't go back yet, but the individual tours should be definitely safe and should happen shortly.
And of course, Poland relies on tourism a lot. I don't think everybody knows or considers it such a tourist destination, but it's actually not true. There are a lot of people that go to Poland. I read somewhere just the other day that Krakow, which is one of the major destinations for tourism, last year has lost 846 million euro, which is a massive, through to lack of tourism. So I think everyone's very, very keen, and everybody will take all the precautions necessary to make sure that come summer, people can come to Poland, because it is such a beautiful place to visit. You are at the moment in the city of Wrocław. Tell us more about Wrocław. It's a very, very stunning city.
Yes, it is. Well, definitely, it's people very often are not aware of that, but tourism in Poland, especially in the last couple of years, is really a big thing. It's as far as I remember, in 2019, it was nearly 5% of our gross domestic product. So I'm pretty sure that also our government will do their best to ensure people that it's safe to come to Poland, and there will be also many promotional actions to encourage people to visit Poland again.
Yeah, and I think it's in everyone's interest to things to get started up. And just going back to the city of Wrocław, where you're based at the moment, it is one of the major tourist destinations. So I think it's probably in top 5 when people think of Poland. There's Kraków, there's Warsaw, but Wrocław somewhere up there, yeah, in top 5, would you say?
Yes, I would say it's top 5, depending on the part of the year. But last couple of years, we had a beautiful Christmas market that was something considered as one of the most beautiful in Europe. And we were actually supposed to organize a group tour for the holiday season to Wrocław. That was unfortunately canceled. But really hope that it's going to go back to normal.
Yeah, and look, it sounds pretty positive. I mean, at the moment, we were just talking before that Poland's extended its lockdown till the end of January, but it is hoped that by being strict right now, just like we have been in Australia, it'll pave the way for for better conditions. And as you said, they're rolling out vaccinations, and everyone is quite careful, and there are lots of precautions being taken everywhere. So we'll check back with you maybe around March, and we are keeping our fingers crossed. I mean, I've not been to Poland since January of last year, and I really miss it. It's a really fantastic place to visit. If anyone hasn't been, do go, particularly if you do have Polish heritage, because that connection, you can kind of feel it in the air. There's something so special about walking in your ancestral footsteps, I think. So if anybody wanted to contact you, Tom, what should they do, and what kind of services do you provide at the moment?
So at the moment, we, as I mentioned before, we do a lot of genealogy research, and very often an idea about visiting Poland comes after doing the genealogy research. So we have either people who contact us regarding the tour, and when we tell our customers, okay, of course we'll organize a great heritage tour for you, but first we need to do a little research. But on the other hand, we also have customers who are interested only in researching, in finding out about their Polish ancestors. And after that research is completed, they said, okay, I achieved quite a lot. Now I know the location. So maybe it's a good reason for me to come to Poland. And that's what we really hope for. That's why we extended and reorganized our research department so that we are able to do a bit more research. And as a result, we hope that many of our current customers would decide to visit Poland, and maybe even if not in 2021, maybe in the following years.
Right. Because I should tell people that are watching us, is that we really love working with you, because you are very diligent, and your team, and very resourceful, also creative, but very patient. There's so many attributes that you have to have as a genealogist or researcher. So we really do hope for the best, and we'll put your contact details on our Facebook page when we finish. But in the meantime, we have a whole heap of questions, let me tell you. So I'm going to hand over to Andrea just to ask them of you.
Thank you, guys. I have a few questions here from Tom, for Tom. What sort of measures have been taken in Poland to travel around the country? Do you know? I mean, in terms of COVID. Yeah, right now.
So right now there are still some restrictions, but so there is even a list of countries from where the tourists were not really allowed to come, but it was valid till January 6th. So right now we don't have any new restrictions being announced. The only thing is that right now when you come to Poland using the public transport, you should stay on quarantine for 10 days. But if you prove the negative COVID test, or if you had if you were vaccinated, then this quarantine, you don't need to go on quarantine for these 10 days.
All right, thank you so much. For those that just joined a little bit later, they're asking for if there's any major delays with genealogy research in Poland due to COVID. Do you know anything about that?
About the delays in doing the research? Yeah, in some cases, it takes a little bit longer because, for example, when you cannot go to the archive and do the research on your own, I mean, if I cannot go there, I need to send the request. And then some of the archives right now, they deal with a really large number of requests. But as I said, during the years of cooperation with these archives, it doesn't really bother us. Maybe it's like 1 or 2 weeks of delays. It's a little bit worse, for example, with Belarus, because the archive in Grodno has been closed for the last couple of months, and we can hardly get any information from them right now.
Thank you so much, Tom. How do you get involved with Polish genealogy? Have you looked for your own family history already?
Yes, but as we say in Poland, a shoemaker doesn't wear shoes. So, whereas I always believe that I still got a lot of time to work on my own genealogy. However, I reached pretty far back. And how I get involved with Polish genealogy, I was always interested in tourism, and it was my major interest. But I was looking for a kind of niche, and while being in the States for the first time, I noticed that there are many people who are really interested in coming to Poland, and having Polish heritage is one of the main reasons of their willingness of coming over. But as I said, we quickly realized that you need to find out a little bit more, and giving people the exact location of their ancestral village and really encourages them to realize their plan of coming over to Poland.
Thank you. There are quite a few other companies in Poland and around the world that offers the service, similar service that you offer, combining tourism and genealogy research. How do you differentiate your company from others? What sort of plus do you offer?
Well, first of all, it's important to mention that we organize the tours by ourselves. So we're like a registered tour operator here in Poland, while many companies that are in our competition, they offer it, but they use some travel agencies to organize the tour itself. And these travel agencies have they don't deal with genealogy, so they could provide you a great sightseeing tour, but it won't have much to do with heritage tours. So our tours are really focused on showing people what Poland looks like nowadays, but what's usually more important for us is to try to explain people or work on their imagination. We try to show them what Poland might have looked like when their ancestors lived here.
I should also mention that Tom's company really does come highly recommended, from us. But for those of you that don't know, the tourism industry in Poland is actually highly regulated. So things like insurances, you do have to have permits and all kinds of compliance. So when you have a company that you can trust, then you can rest assured that all of that's going to be taken care of. So sometimes it's an industry that's relatively easy to get into, I guess, at the start. But to sustain and to survive for nearly 15 years is not that easy, because Poland is still, and correct me if I'm wrong, but it's still in the tourism part of compliance, and Tom does take care of and ensures that all the boxes have been ticked. So that's just from me, yeah.
Thank you. My last questions here will be, why combining genealogy research and tourism?
Mainly because we believe that for Americans and people from Australia or New Zealand, one of the reasons of coming to Poland is the Polish heritage. So I would say, I've never checked it. I'm not sure if anyone has ever done any research on that, but I would say that the majority of Americans visiting Poland actually have Polish heritage. That's why it seems to me to be quite natural that these two things need to be related.
Yeah, and there's something like 9 million people of Polish heritage in the United States alone. So I think if you look back far enough, everyone's Polish somewhere. That's my opinion. But Tom, we are running out of time. So I wanted to thank you sincerely for your time and explaining and looking into your crystal ball. But as we're finishing this session, I wanted to say hello to everybody that's watched. So that includes Jeffrey and Eva and Jadwiga and Nadia. Thank you for being part of this, and Gustavo, I think, as well. So hi, everyone. It's been a very, very popular session. If anyone wants to reach out to Tom, his contact details will be on our website. And we're so keeping our fingers crossed that we can come to Poland this year and enjoy the beautiful country that it is. And potentially work with you. So I'll hand over to you just for the last few words as we're finishing the session, but thank you so very much for your time.
Thank you very much. It was a real pleasure to try to give you a little update and tell you what the predictions, but not only what the situation is going to be in this year. I really would like to also encourage you to come and visit Poland in a very safe way that we can provide for you. And I hope we could meet together again in a couple of months, let's say in March, and I will give you an update. And I hope I will be able to share some really good news about the current situation, the future current situation.
Tom, you're a great advocate for Poland, and your company is very professional. So, as I said already, highly recommended. Thank you, everyone, for watching. And we check back with Tom in March. Hopefully, by then, everything's over and we're back to normal, whatever that means for everyone. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you around.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone. Bye.
Bye.